Hi guys, I just wanted to tell you one more thing that I learned today. Today I learned how to change the value inside an object. Suppose if we're creating an object and if we had passed already an argument inside that object, how do we change the value inside that object? And one more thing I tried to learn is today is use return function. So without return function, we cannot store values in an external variable inside the code. So we will see what we did today. Today we have a class called file organizer. In that file organizer, we are just passing a parameter. It's called folder path. We are assigning the instance variable to the folder path, and here we have another method. It's called display folder. So whatever a folder name is present inside the object during the creation of the object will be passing an argument, right? So if we, that method, this display folder method will be displaying whatever the data is stored inside that object. So we have a method too, it's called change folder. So inside this method, if there is any value which is present inside the object, we'll use this method to change that value to the latest argument that we are passing. So we have another method, this is called get folder. So you can see in line 33 there is something called a return. So what this does is, so it takes the value from the object whichever is stored inside this object, and it will be returning to whoever are calling this method. So at the end we are having a function. So this function is not tied to any class. So this is also a method, but this is outside the class, so we are calling it as function. So this function will just say happy learning end of day 3. So we'll go to our main class. We'll try to import from file organizer. This is an let's say this is a package, and we're trying to import our class which is called file organizer. So once we import the class, the first thing we'll do is create an object. So how we organizer underscore object is our object. We are trying to create from the class. We'll try to pass our arguments here. So let us say music folder is current folder. This is our current argument. We'll just try to print the entire object. We'll try to execute this code. Let me clear this. So see, the entire object got printed, the ID of the object got printed, but our argument whichever we passed, the music folder is current folder, did not get printed. So to take care of that, we can do something like organizer object dot folder path. So now so both the ID and the argument that was passed to this object got printed. So we'll try to call an method. So we can call our first method. Our first method is called display folder. Usually for calling method we usually need an object. So we have an object here, object dot This is our display folder method. We can do something called, when we execute this code, all the lines in this code will get executed. The first equal to line, the folder name, whichever we passed it to while creating an object. So this is an constructor. So here we have to pass a parameter. So while creating an object, music folder is current folder is the argument that is passed. So when we execute this method, all these lines will get executed, and in the folder path, whichever value which is present inside the object will get executed. So we'll check it. So whatever objects here in this method, everything got executed. So we'll go to next method, which is called change folder. So even for calling that method, we need an object. So we already have an object created. Dot. We'll call this change folder method, and I would like to pass an argument. The argument will be video folder is current folder. So here in this method, we are printing something whenever there is a change in folder. So the folder path has been switched to change folder. So even if right now, if you do something called print organizer object dot folder path, I can say something like final path. So whenever we made a switch from music folder to video folder, that's the value that is stored inside the object. So that's what it is showing here. So we can go ahead and we can just call our third method, which is call a return method. Our third method here is get folder. So organizer dot object dot get folder. So when you execute this code, nothing gets printed. But what we can do is we can assign this to a variable, because inside this get folder we have something called return variable underscore x is equal to this one. Now you can do print this variable. The value inside the variable is. So now you are able to print the value which is present inside the variable. So how to import a function into this thing? So all the methods inside class are tied to a class. So if you import that class, everything will get imported. But with the function, it's a different thing. Suppose if you wanted to call this function, which is called by message function, you cannot call it directly here like this. When you execute it, it will throw an error. The buy message function is not defined. So you have to explicitly import this function from file organizer, import buy message function. Now when you execute this, so the value inside the function got printed. So usually for the sake of looks, we'll try to send everything here. So that's the reason when you open the code, you'll have multiple from packages and multiple imports. So it might be a function, it might be a class if you are importing different classes from an SDK. So this is the reason you will have everything in the front. So today, what I would like to summarize whatever I learned. I learned about the functions and how to call them in another main Python pages, and I like try to learn the return values, and I learned how to change the value inside an object. Thank you.